Okay, folks, it is 6 o'clock. I'm going to call this meeting to order for Maple Run Unified School District Board of Directors for March 19th, 2025 at 6 p.m. And the meeting is held at Northwest Career and Technical Center. First item, and thank you for hosting it, NCTC, we appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is the agenda review. The only item I have is to delete 9B, unpaid leave request. Hearing nothing else, I am going to say that the agenda is accepted with no change. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Next item on the agenda is visitors. We have any visitors in the room that wish to address the board.
Yes, we do.
People in the room, are there visitors that wish to address the board?
Yes. Yes, we got someone here.
Is there anyone in the room that wishes to address the board? Just raise your hand, let me know.
Yes, no doubt.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the public comment visitor section of the meeting is an opportunity for community members to address issues of concern about policy, budget, or administrative matters, or to share ideas about how we can work together to improve our schools. We value input and respect divergent views. We ask you to limit your remarks to 3 minutes per topic and refrain from airing grievances with individual members of the school community, including respecting the privacy of the students and of the parents. Those attending remotely may type their name in the comment section of the Zoom and let us know if you wish to speak. Thank you. Do we have a microphone, or is somebody just going to stand up and talk loud?
I can talk loud.
You're going to have to stand up and talk loud.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'd like you to state your name
Sure.
and where you live, please.
Yes. So my name is Christopher Yates. I'm actually a Swanton resident. My daughter is in Maple Run as a school choice student, and she would be here tonight to advocate for herself, but she came down with a stomach bug and we didn't feel it was right for her to be here. So I am going to speak on her behalf. And it's kind of a policy question because I couldn't find the policy that she was asking for me to look for. And it's regard to clubs in the school and equity between clubs and promotion of those clubs, okay? The club that she is a part of was started last year and has never been promoted or allowed to basically tell people they exist in the school. And there are other clubs in the school that are in the handbook, they're in the extracurriculars section, they're promoted during enrichment periods, which we can't figure out how a club operates during enrichment during school hours. So I feel that every club, there should be a policy first off, so that every club can be represented and operate under the same guidelines. That was it for me.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else in the room wish to address the board?
Yes.
I don't know if
Yes,
I'm as loud. I'm Caitlin Pierce. I'm a parent. I have 3 kids. 2 are presently at SATEC. I also coach for SATEC.
Can you state your name?
Oh, sorry, Caitlin Pierce. And I am appreciative of everybody. I love SATEC. I love Maple Run.
everything that you guys pour into these students. We absolutely are so appreciative and grateful. One concern that I had was concerning the whole gender and inclusive. I'm not sure exactly where it falls into the agenda today, but my daughter is in sixth grade, and she was taught that there were 77 genders, and that there are not 2 genders, and you can pick whatever you would like to be. I don't think that is true. It's not true, so I don't know how we are able to teach that. It's kind of an ideology right now, and I think that we should be taught to accept everybody, love everybody, right? And accept them, be kind. That's what we're called to do, is love everybody. But I don't think that should be in a school setting. I don't think it should be taught. I don't think it should be part of a curriculum. And how do we, and that was in health class, so how do we make everybody included and feel accepted, but at the same time not teaching things that are not true? So that was mine. And also kind of, sorry, can I say 2 parts? Sure. To kind of back off his. So I was also kind of wondering, in their sense, there was a lot of students a part of this club as well, because it's not school sponsored. So that was the reasoning for them not being able to promote it, or put it in the daily announcements, or put signs up in the school. So how do we define what is school sponsored and what is not school sponsored? And that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the room wish to speak? Okay, John, is there anyone online that has indicated they wish to speak?
Nobody's asked to speak online, Nilda.
Okay, well, hearing no one else, we'll take the comments we received under revised text and move on with our agenda. Next item on the agenda is the equity policy work session. And I believe we have Harry Frank on the line. Is that correct? Yes. And there was, hi, how are you? And also Bill, and we have an attachment called attachment 5 in our packet, which is a draft of equity policy, taking into consideration all the work and commentary that you received from our work sessions. I'm going to turn it over to you and Bill to get this going. I think, you know, we do have a goal to try to get this policy in, ready to go for first reading at our next meeting, if that works out. So, take it away.
Great. I'll just start real quickly, and then I've asked Harry to kind of explain the work he did since the last meeting. But if you recall, we've had 3 work sessions that the board asked to do. You asked to do this as a whole board back in either late October or November. I don't remember exactly which meeting, but we started in December, working with Harry, and he's been working with the board with 3 work sessions, and we've had people join us from the public. And he took all the feedback that you had. We added a 4th one at the last meeting where the board gave some feedback, and he took that and gave the draft that you have in front of you right now. And so I was Harry, could you explain kind of what you did and how you got us to this draft that you're bringing to the board, that you're providing the board as a jumping off point?
Yep. So what I tried to do was, as Bill said, take my recollection builds up the conversations and the written notes that I collected from you all, which, by the way, I mailed back to Bill. I hope Bill they arrived ahead of the meeting, so that you could reference those if you'd like. And what I did was pull forward what you all identified of the components of policy that most fit with what you wanted in a policy. And so it was to basically bring everything that was mentioned by people individually, although a number of you were saying very similar things. To bring those all forward, what I did largely was take the policy from the Champlain Valley School District and modify it, because that seemed to be a common one that you referred to frequently as a good framework, both in terms of like the length, the component pieces, the content of it, and then there were a number of other specific references, like to a piece from Montpelier's policy, to a piece from. So what I did then was create this draft based on all of those comments, suggestions, and put it forward for you all. I mean, really, my attempt was not to try to write a policy that I thought, okay, well, this isn't going to change it all, because obviously I wanted to pass it back to you for now, you all to make sure that this in fact does reflect your interests and needs. And so it's very much as a working draft to put back in your hands. I'm happy to answer questions about that, but I hope that at least gives a broad enough description of what I did that you have a baseline to start from.
Thank you. Questions for Harry, board?
Was that Joanna with the question?
I can't see you, John.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is Joanna. Harry, my question was around the bottom of the end of the draft, where you talked about accountability. And one thing that I think that we talked about, maybe it's not really even accountability, but just we talked about, I don't remember which school's policy that I liked, but they talked about the roles of different people within an educational setting. So I don't know that I'm necessarily just speaking to accountability, but just the role of the board, the role of the superintendent, the role of staff, and the role of students.
I think it was Essex.
Was it Essex?
Montpelier had that.
It was Montpelier.
Montpelier had that.
And that was something that we talked about really liking, because it also, it answered questions for people reading the policy in terms of community members. So if they had a question or concern with an aspect of the policy, that they would know, they could infer who it is that they should talk to about whatever aspect that they had a question or concern about.
Yeah. So, and you may, again, this is my best attempt to capture all this, so I don't feel any sense of like, you shouldn't edit this to your desire, but what I think, when I remember that, and under the section that's underlined policy, where it says the Maple Run Unified School District is committed to the success of every student. The second sentence is, Maple Run Unified School District Board of Directors holds itself and all district and school site decision makers, faculty, and support staff accountable for building district-wide. Maybe I don't need to read everything here, but
Yeah.
that was at least one place where I was trying to accomplish what you're suggesting, Joanna.
Okay.
And I do agree that identifying sort of roles and responsibilities is a really key one. So if the language in there doesn't provide enough to what you're looking for, then I would suggest adding it there, although I get that it could come under the accountability question too.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I specifically remember writing it on my form too about the role, I don't know if the word roles is the right term, but, you know, who does what, basically.
Yeah, so I mean, I could certainly see that added under the accountability piece if you want. So, you know, right now, right, it says that the board is gonna get a report from the superintendent at least annually. Then it also identifies the superintendent more specifically as the person responsible for ensuring, again, without reading all the language there, because you have it in front of you. So that would be another place if you wanted to put more, you know, specificity to the roles and responsibilities. That level, I think.
Yeah, maybe we can work on that, not necessarily right this minute, but
Yeah,
something to.
Joanna, I have that right in front of me here, so.
You do.
Yeah, what you were talking.
Is it roles?
It doesn't even do that, it just says expectations for district administrators, board expectations, hiring expectations, expectations for curriculum, conflict resolution. Those are the areas they
Yeah.
talk about.
I just thought that air, you know,
Yeah.
how they formulated that was, it was really made it accessible for other people.
Right. Right.
Which one was that one, Bill?
That's Montpelier Roxbury's policy, and it's down at the bottom underneath the policy, it just talk about expectations for those different areas, and then underneath the district, it says superintendent assessment and reporting. For board, it says policy review, board education and training, and concerted action. So,
Yeah. So maybe we can get something like that. Go
yeah,
ahead.
we could do a little cutting and pasting and editing. Yep. I'm trying to take notes on my copy, but I know Aaron's much better at this than I am. So.
He really is.
He really is, I'm not joking around. I know where there's talent, I'm pretty good at seeing talent, what I lack.
I mean, that sounds like language that would meet what you're speaking to, Joanna, so.
Yeah.
I always think that's a good idea.
I have a question, and so I know what the words mean. I'm trying to understand them in this context. So this, under policy, it says, the last end of it is for initial proficiencies. Does that mean like what they show up in school with? Could it be a disability or a difference, some sort of learning difference, or what? Help me understand, please.
I can give you my understanding of it, but I wonder if just this conversation doesn't suggest maybe some different language would be useful. So what I understand that to mean, initial proficiencies, is the notion that we all arrive at the start of the school year with certain experiences, skills, interests, aptitudes, and that those would be our initial proficiencies, meaning those are the things at which we are currently proficient. And in this context, I think it's this idea that, it doesn't matter where anybody started, our commitment is to bring everyone forward in their learning and growth and, yeah.
So kind of,
I mean, as I said, I think my other takeaway in an instance like that is if that's language that isn't really clear, that would be good to change.
Well, maybe it's just not clear to me. I mean, it could be clear to everyone else in the room.
my read on it is pretty similar to Harry's, to give like a kind of just like an out of the hat example. What was that?
Baseline.
Yeah. No, like, so if you have two kids starting fourth grade, one reads at a seventh grade level, one reads at a first grade level, we're committed to making sure that both of them have what they need, and that's going to require, require different tools. But that to me would cover initial proficiencies. I can't think of a better 2 or 3 word phrase to describe that, unfortunately. You said baseline?
I mean, I think what I'm hearing is that it's like you meet them where they're at, right? But that's also not very eloquent, where they're at.
Mary Ann provided the word baseline. I don't know if, initial baseline, I don't know if that.
Yeah, I think that's one that we could do a bunch of
Yeah.
thesaurus, and I wrote attributes, because it's not just knowledge.
Yeah.
It's not just knowledge, so it's, there's something greater than that word.
And if we're having questions on it, we're trying to make sure that there's an equitable policy that everybody understands, and so to be really, whatever we're questioning as a team, we should make sure everybody else understands too.
Well, we also want
Yeah.
a readability level
Yeah,
that all
yeah.
can access.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's one of the problems with a lot of our own policies, we were talking about that, which Marianne will talk about later, is just making it so everyone can understand.
Yeah, that's the hard part about policies.
I wonder if you could just put a period after predetermined and you don't need the list of what it could be predetermined by. Because if we have a list, then it could be confusing, like in the initial proficiencies, or it could be missing something that we don't want equity to be based on. So just equity means that a student's success is not predicted or predetermined.
Where
Where do you see that?
8.
8, 9, and 10. Unless initial
Okay.
proficiencies was somewhere else too.
Yeah, they were
It's down
looking at
lower
23.
for-
Oh, never mind then.
It's okay.
No,
But it helps.
it's a good idea, Marie.
Yeah.
I think the same thing could
Yeah, I
be
think
said
that's
there.
Yeah.
Just and period at the end of 24, and that way just the success of MRUSD district is committed to the success of every student.
Yeah, and that it might also help with the arguability of it because, like, it's every student, you know, like it might be a little easier to digest for some people, I think, too.
And I'm sure there's something, if you make a list, then there's almost always something you're missing. So if we want it to be every student, then is it necessary to list everything out? Or does that just complicate things?
I'm of mixed minds on that because there's always a risk of leaving something off of a list, in which case we would want to review the policy regularly, make sure that we're not doing that. My concern with just removing the list is the number of people who have biases that they don't recognize might step on equity, like, you know, geography, gender identity, things like that people don't necessarily think about that we might want to make sure we call out. So I think there's pros and cons to both approaches, but I would be hesitant to necessarily throw away the list entirely.
I think there needs to be one list, at least one list in the document. Like, because I do think, like, we don't need 2 lists of the same thing, and I agree that definitely, like, I feel like is really specific to, like, class, economics, geography, ability, language are a lot of, like, systemic biases that people have, but they're not really aware to that. It's implicit, and so I think definitely, like, I agree that we really need some of those words or phrases in there that can really help hone in on that. And I also agree that we probably don't need the list 2 or 3 times throughout the same policy. That helps with the readability of it too.
I would agree with that. I would, if we were to do that, I think the best place for the list, my personal opinion, would be in the definition part, so that way it's front and center.
Yeah. Agreed.
Agreed.
Do we have any other questions or comments?
We just want to add a few. And, you know, and that goes back to what you were talking about, Marie. Making sure we're, you know, we have, I know it says, I think it says socioeconomic class, but might want to have homelessness in there, lack of access to healthcare. You know, there's some others.
Other comments?
We could research.
I think it's important for us to spell it out because of the unforeseen biases, and if people come up to us, it's in the policy, and if we just have a general policy without what we're trying to achieve, it just becomes a general policy.
I mean, I do think that we should recognize that times change, and we're not going to cover every base with any list we do, and that's like, not, I mean, that's where revisiting the policy and making sure that would, fall under the implementation, but we want to make sure that we're adjusting to the times, but, if some new category comes out that would fall under this, then it's not necessarily, an omission is not an intentional omission, it's we didn't know at the time.
We could put wording of such in there too.
What was
You could
that?
put wording of such in there too,
Yeah,
to state that, I mean, we're not gonna have a comprehensive list no matter what we do.
Well,
I mean,
I'm always fearful of trying to wordsmith in a large group of people,
Yeah.
because we could be here all night. But you could put at the beginning of such a list, you could say, for example, or such as, so that kind
To
of
include.
indicates
Not to
that you're
exclude.
giving examples.
Okay.
For example, and then list, and that sort of leaves it open that there could be other things, but these are just examples.
Like not limited to these.
Yeah, I like
yes,
that.
included but
Not
included but
limited
not.
to.
But-
Limited to, yeah.
I always appreciate students who have some good ideas, because we older folks need that. I'm speaking for myself as an older folk. Most of the board members are young people.
Excuse me. I have a question for the board. Does this meet the intent of what we were looking for? And that we just need to wordsmith some words and add some of the commentary, but are we like going down the right path, the right flavor? I don't know what the right word is to, we picked up what we want to say.
Yeah.
Can I get sort of a feeling?
Yeah,
Thumbs up, thumbs down?
I feel good about this, but I think we could leave it up to the superintendent with some students, and they could wordsmith it a little bit of the areas that we were troubled, we were tripping over,
Yeah.
But overall, I think it's very good, and appreciate, Harry, what you've done and all that,
Yeah.
from my perspective.
Jess, how about you?
Yeah, I do like it overall. I like Jack's suggestion of saying such as, but not limited to, and having the list, and then Marie's suggestion of dropping the list in the policy portion. Yeah, but I think it captures what I would like to see.
Thank you. How about you, Mary Ann?
Yep, same.
Okay, Charlie?
Yes, I think we're on the right track.
I think we're on the right track.
Amanda?
Yeah.
Joanna?
Yeah, I just had one other question that I wanted to actually put out to Jacoby. Jacoby, you were really kind of championing the concept of making sure that we're reevaluating. Do you feel like that is in the implementation? I don't know that it's, for me, it's not direct enough, but I don't know if that was just my interpretation.
Yeah, like monitor. Yeah, we could say like monitor and evaluate. Monitor and reassess. Like, and the individual. Yeah, I definitely feel like. Yeah,
didn't feel
definitely like
direct.
the striving. Like really have like a bullet point in there that's about. And that way, it can also circle back into the reevaluation of the policy too.
Mhm.
Like with as language changes. Yeah, I definitely feel like the strive is a little less there. It's a little more concrete.
Well, it also just talks about like we're gonna reevaluate,
Yeah.
evaluate the needs of the schools, and I guess that could be included in that, but just as long as we're putting out there that we're reevaluating the needs of all of our students and community as our students and communities continue to change, right?
May I just ask a technical question under the accountability? It's the last bullet. Is there something that you might want to do there to say what you want that structure of the report, annual report to be? Because that's where, when you've asked that, Joanna, I remember there's an annual report, but there's nothing here about the structure of the report or what should be included in
Right.
that.
How we would measure that.
Yeah, not necessarily, well, the measures might change, so I wouldn't want to get in a policy so strict to the measures.
Okay.
But we'd like to have information on staff, students, community.
Yes.
something like that.
Where we would measure it.
Yeah, because you.
The areas.
I would hate to have to go change a policy if we were gonna
Yep,
change or
I
add a
gotcha.
measure. So,
Okay,
but like, what topics would you want that
Right.
report to include? And that's what I heard you talking about.
yes. Yep. Thanks.
Yep.
Suzanne, is this picking up, policy picking up where you like it to
I
be?
think it looks really great. I know we need to tweak a few things, but pretty satisfied with it.
Okay, Carly?
Yeah, I think we're on the right track. Everything that people have said, I agree with.
Perfect. Student members? You guys okay with the intent here?
Yeah, I'm feeling good about the intent so far.
I am too.
Me too.
Thank you. So at least we know we're on the right track. I think a couple of people said that, we're on the right track. So I guess the next step would be for the superintendent to wordsmith it.
What I can do is I can, one of the things, that I was gonna say tonight, this is kind of like the board's time, but we got a lot of feedback, and I don't need between Aaron and myself, we can probably, and this recording, we can probably make sure we've captured everything and bring another, we can either bring a draft, or we can post it for policy review, and that would be up, I would take some direction on that, Nilda, which way the board would prefer to go.
How's the board want to go? Do you want to have this be wordsmithed and sent to us as going to the next meeting as a first reading, which means it would have to then have a second reading and then could be adopted after that second reading? Or do we want to see it again before we send it to a first reading? Who thinks that we can send it to a first reading?
Susan,
I think that we could probably try to look over it and adopt it for next meeting.
So bring it as a first
We have a
reading.
lot of work
Well,
to do.
I think the other thing is if we don't like it at the first reading, we can say, no, we gotta make some changes, bring it back, right? I mean, that's an option, so at least we're, correct, that's an option, right, Bill?
Yep, yeah, you have the right to say, hey, we're going for extra readings and we want more times, because we usually like to have 2 readings in a row be pretty settled in draft. That's been the practice we've been under.
Yep. So, I think I'm hearing that people would like to have it come forward as a first reading at the next meeting.
Okay?
Is that
So,
possible?
it
for
is,
you, Bill?
Aaron and I need to work on it this week. We gotta get it done by Friday, because there's 10 days. I'll actually have to count, I might be off of my count, but we
Well,
can do
I'm just
that.
wondering if
Does
that's
that timeline
feasible for
work?
you.
We'll
Is that
figure it out.
doable?
We'll figure it out.
Because it could be also the next meeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we can do it,
Now, is that something
Okay.
where we would,
because we have to warn it for 10 days. I'm gonna actually check my calendar right now, but I think we're okay.
I mean, it should be 2 weeks before our next meeting.
So the timeline works, Bill?
That only gives them 4 days to work on it. so.
That just means we just have it done, we have it posted by Friday, end of day Friday, because it has to really be up by Sunday.
Like the day after tomorrow, Friday?
Yeah,
So why don't you
How about we wait
take
till
the next meeting?
when we take the next meeting to you guys work on it, and then the next meeting we can put it. So you guys don't have to rush so much. It's 48 hours. not
Yeah.
Yeah.
even 48 hours.
I
Yeah, it's
don't want to
unnecessary.
rush it either.
Yes.
Yeah, it's even necessary
Okay.
stress to put you guys through.
all right,
I mean, it's an important enough policy that it needs to be
yeah,
Yeah.
done well and not rushed, so.
okay.
So we're decided we're gonna look at it at the next meeting, but send it forward for first reading after that.
All right,
Is that correct?
Yep.
So just as a point of clarification, that means that this policy wouldn't actually be an official policy until at the earliest our first meeting in May.
that's correct, by your policies adoption.
That's correct. So, Bill, do we have any other information related to this equity policy that we need to discuss? Or Harry?
I don't think, so. I'm happy to be a resource, Bill, to you and Aaron and the board at any point. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate the work you've done. And.
Thanks, Harry.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, and I think I said at the very first session, I really admire your efforts to move forward with this. So, Thank you all.
Right, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome to stick around, but you don't have to.
Hilda, thanks for the invitation. I look forward to hearing how the meeting goes.
I bet.
All right.
Okay, so next item on the agenda, we're up to item 6 is the consent agenda. We have approval of minutes, the media package, the donation. And obviously you have a hyperlink to the board annual plan. Does anyone need to pull any of these out to discuss? Hearing none, the consent agenda is accepted without objection. Next item is 7, reports to the board. We have student board reps that have the report for us, and Jacoby, and I apologize, I can't read the other 2 names. Tell me who you are again, please.
I'm Riley Dexter.
And I'm Marie Disorder.
Thank you. So who's going to start?
Okay, I'll start. So since we last spoke, Amelia and I have attended 2 more meetings.
Awesome.
Yes, thank you. We've attended 2 more meetings around working to develop a bias support and response system for Maple Run in regards to HHB and Title IX and then regular bias incidents. And that has been going really well, and we had our second to last meeting today, and we are seeing a really nice restorative policy that's coming out of it, and it is really well aligned with like the equity work, and we're excited to present that to you all.
Alrighty, as a whole group, we've been working towards interviewing and recruiting freshmen and sophomores to join us next year, hopefully, as student board reps and our work within the district. And those have been going really well. I've only had a couple, but I've heard from the other groups that theirs have been going well as well.
And lastly, our middle school support team has been working with State Tech. We've been going to State Tech about once a month, and we've been working with their student voice committee. We've been doing certain activities with them to like kind of bond them and like build a connection with them and other people at their school.
Yeah, and I will add to piggyback off of the interview thing, is that at the end of each interview, we're asking each student what board goal speaks to them the most, and then we will present like the percentage of which students found the goal that spoke with them. That way we can have a little bit of idea of kind of what is resonating with students so far.
That's an awesome idea.
Any questions for our student board? Okay, thank you again. Next item is old business, Vermont Education System Reform Status and Update. Bill's going to update us, and we have attached. No, I don't think we have attachment.
No, we didn't put an attachment in on that one.
That's old. Go ahead.
So, there's been quite a bit of testimony and discussion happening in the State House on the education reform bill that was presented by the governor's plan. There are 3 other plans that are out there, and one became another piece of legislation today. I believe it was either yesterday or today, or will be coming this week. The Senate Ed Committee is writing their own consolidation plan that's different from the governor's. And the House right now has been talking, as of yesterday, I haven't caught up with today's testimony, but they've been talking about how they may form an outside committee to work over the summer, because there's so many factors into consolidation, and that would be like Representative Conlon, who's the chair of the House Ed, has said similar to what the federal government's done on the base closing commission, that it would be experts in education that know like how could you actually pull districts together into a smaller number. I've got to tell you, there's a lot of momentum to change the structure of Vermont's education right now. I really haven't heard anything that's stopping this right now. So there will, if I were to bet, I bet something, we will have a different system. I don't know what that is. There are 6 big components in there, one of them being the structure of districts. Another one being how we fund them, which is a foundation formula, is getting a lot of support. The Vermont Superintendent's Association testified on Tuesday as a group. First time we've come together to say that we are for, and I'm saying we because I agree with this, we are for a different structure in Vermont's education system. And that we can do things better if we could make some changes. So the big areas that are being talked about is district size, school size, class size, funding, the composition of the state board, AOE, and the role of the legislature and the governor in rule-making authority. I've got 5 and I'm missing one. I should have written them down here, I'm sorry. But those are areas, and I've talked to you all as a board of like, where are you at? Because I would want to represent where Maple Run is on that. And that is, there are some boards that have taken up some action. I can tell you just earlier this week, Burlington and Colchester boards have for the first time of any boards have really come out with a stand. There have been some other districts that have joined the consortium of rural schools, Vermont Rural Schools. I don't have that name exactly right, but it's a group representing many of the smaller supervised unions and school districts in the state of Vermont. As I said, there are other plans that are out there. The Campaign for Vermont came out with its own plan that they put up on their website, which hasn't been talked about at the legislature. So it's a very active piece right now. I guess I'm so deep down in it, I could go and go and go, but I would take any questions that you have, because I'm really, as I said to you last time, I've really kind of turned a lot of my focus while ensuring Maple Run is operating well, but at the same time keeping track of what's going on at the legislature, which I haven't done. I mean, I always keep track of it, but not to the daily piece that I am now. So I don't know if there's any questions or comments or things you want me to find out or send you more of.
My question / commentary is really more for the board in general. We had talked about doing making a resolution about this last month, I believe it was, but we kind of held off as more information was coming out. And I'd like to maybe revisit whether or not we should do that if we have common ground as a board where we think the things are going right, or where our concerns are. I mean, my biggest concerns at the moment are in the complete lack of paying attention to the Vermont's infrastructure, with changes to class sizes and school sizes that aren't going to fit into the schools that we have, which seems to be a complete blind spot in all of this so far. But I'd be interested in knowing if we have common areas that, as a board, we want to voice publicly and put out in a resolution.
Right, thank you. Anyone else? One of the things we also talked about, actually, when we were prepping for the meeting tonight, was somehow being able to state that we want the legislature to use evidence-based, science-based information rather than using their gut, because they went to school and they think they know how to do it, rather than they were, educated on how to do it. And I don't know, I was joking about, be it resolved that you educate yourself, is probably not the nicest way to do this, but can we do something like that and also incorporate the concern that's been brought up by Charlie and anyone else, just, even if it's just a bullet list of, you know, things we want them to think about as they're doing this process. Of course, it may be a little too late now, but
I would say
I think
it's,
it makes sense to go on the record.
no, I wouldn't say it's too late. They're in active discussions. You know, Casey Toof, who's one of our representatives, is the sponsor of the bill, but he's also said, I'm using this bill as a way to get the discussion going. He's been very open about that, and in his committee work, it's been great to actually hear him. He said, I'm open to talk about this, but we got to start from somewhere. And so,
Okay.
and so, I mean, I saw him say that as much as yesterday on the recording. So he's like, you know, I want to talk about this, but we've got to get something done too. He's been pressing, like, let's get something done. So I think they're still willing to hear, but I think that will go away rather shortly. And when I mean shortly, within the next month. Because they've got to get something on the table, because they're going to actually extend the session for this bill only. They've allowed this bill to go past crossover, so.
So is everybody,
Joanna?
somebody saying something?
Joanna's gonna,
Yeah. I'm kind of, what Marie said before is resonating with me right now. I don't know that there's two things that I'm concerned about, and I would hesitate to list just, you know, two things. Those are the only two concerns that we have, right?
definitely not more.
Which is, you know, why you folks decided, you know, the superintendents decided to say, we believe in that change is necessary.
Change is necessary.
I kind of like what Nilda was just saying. I'd like, I would also add charter schools, you know, just changing the structure and allowing, you know, full school choice and the introduction of charter schools. So I kind of like where Nilda was going in terms of the lens in which people make the decisions that need to be made. Like, I also agree that change needs to happen, and we would like to support the use of evidence-based more evidence-based, you know, practices while making decisions, something along those lines. I think that's a great, bless you, you know, lens to use while making these decisions. But that would be how I would want to frame it, would be more of the how, or just getting on board with that change needs to be done. I wouldn't want to get into listing. Personally, it's my take.
So, coming from the School Boards Association, I've heard a lot of examples of what people think something might happen. I've seen some examples, whatever. The philosophical position that I'm in is, and this is my personal belief, is there's a momentum to do something that'll save money. And I think we need not to forget that in education, we want the best education for our kids. So I know that the citizens of Vermont, because I don't want to just say taxpayers, because even if you rent, your rent goes up because the owner gets taxed and all that. So all citizens need to worry about public schools that are the good for the community. But we need to work on saving money, but also make sure we do the best for kids. And that's, as long as that philosophy, what's good for kids and what the best way to do that to save money, worry about both things, but don't just worry about, because there are a lot of cheap ways we can run schools, but they wouldn't be good for kids. And then we could do a whole bunch of things for kids that would cost way too much money. So we need to think of both things at the same time and common sense. But I do agree that we need to change the way we're doing it. And if I could say just one other thing, in the discussions that I've had, I've seen two things that I think the agency of ed didn't think about, and that's negotiated contracts, because they're gonna be all over the map. You put districts together, all the staff will want the highest paid negotiated agreement. They're not gonna say, we're all gonna give you the average pay. You know, so you're gonna get a pay cut and you're gonna get a pay raise. That won't work. So negotiated agreements is a big challenge. And then the other thing is, if you talk about school size, class size and all that, you've gotta think of school, either school construction or school renovation. But the building concepts are gonna have to be there. And you can't just put 84,000 Vermont students back in the same schools and say that the school size should be a certain thing, because our schools are not that way. Now in Maple Run, our schools are, but for the most part. But across the state, there are schools that have 22 students, schools that have 30 students, you know, that kind of thing. So school construction's a big thing, and negotiated agreements is a big thing.
Hey, Jack. So it sounds like we want to send some type of resolution forward. Bill, do you have enough info to help us create one?
So what I can do is take what you just said and kind of take those into some bullets. I got the concerns. The major concern that I heard was using evidence-based practices that have research behind them, and that's been said by others, but I think it's good for this board to say. And then I heard a lot of the school construction. I heard about school choice. So we'll get that put together and have something for you at the next meeting for that.
But can we add a phrase, or whatever the right phrase would be, like, to include but not limited to, you know, so.
Yeah. I think there's a general,
Somebody said something.
I think Joanna had it right when she said there's a general, like, let's be smart in using what research is telling us for school.
Right, yeah.
For best practices for student
Definitely.
outcomes and for fiscally, that's where Jack was trying to
Yeah.
go. The best practices for
Perfect.
student outcomes and fiscally responsible. Yeah.
All right, good. Thanks, Bill.
Yeah.
So anything else related to the Vermont education system, et cetera? Okay.
Can I use that next time I'm with one of the committees, if I'm in there testifying, the system, whatever?
Wanna say et cetera?
Yeah, et cetera, yeah, that works.
I mean, it's Latin.
Tell your board chair that you use the word et cetera, and kind of all encompassing.
Okay.
Okay. All right, under old business part B, board retreat update. So we told you last meeting that we were gonna send out a Google poll. Well, we didn't. We then figured out that we had, the date of April 14th already scheduled for an educational session, which means most of you probably had that delineated as a night of fun with the school board. So it was suggested that we take April 14th as the date for the retreat. So first, I'd like to make sure that that date works for all of us, because it really is the kind of thing where we all should be there. This would be where you would bob your head, yes or no.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Okay, no conflict for
Yeah,
anyone?
good. You're good?
As far as you know?
Okay, I saw a quick glance there, so.
Are there any no's for the 14th?
Is it really?
Is that your birthday again? I know there's.
I guess I can say
Yes, we got your cake.
That's June, that's right,
So-
that's June.
Aaron knows I'm lying.
I know Aaron knows. I know that conflict.
Suzie, did you have a?
And the
question?
other,
Are we all good?
No,
We're all
I'm good.
We're all good? Okay, so we confirmed the 14th
At 6?
okay,
at 6.
the other thing we talked about is like 6
Six
to
Nine.
8.
So say it again, Nelda.
Sorry.
The other thing we discussed is maybe 6 to 8, or 5:30 to 7:30. I think 6 to 8 would get most people, could get most people there, I think,
The
on
re-
time.
Nilda, you and I and Charlie were talking about it because we're gonna self-facilitate this, and this is really kind of how are we doing on our goals, on the board goals? And what you have for the district, I mean, one of your board goals is to monitor the district goals, so that pulls those in as well. But
Right.
time for you to have that discussion and where are you at? So we weren't, you and I and Charlie were thinking, it wasn't really a 3-hour meeting, it was a 2-hour meeting? I don't know what people think about that, but that's what the three of us had talked about in our board prep.
Right. Does that work? 2 hours?
Yeah.
Okay, basically, it's a goal assessment where we're at. And we're gonna create a form that we can kind of capture some of that a little bit in advance so we can play off it and decide where we need to, be working. One of the things, I don't wanna steal your words, Charlie, but one of the things Charlie pointed out when we were talking was the one that says, that you have policies to back up what we're doing. When you're going to a band concert, you're not really looking at the policy related to that. So that's something that we don't have as great a way to do a follow-up on. So we'll have, that's a topic that we'll need to talk about how do we remedy them.
You were talking about the district goals, right, Nilda?
Yeah.
You said policy, so that might have gotten confusing. For the district goals on the policies for inclusion and
Right.
diversity, that you might not see that there.
If I could just clarify that, so I talked about when we have our the forms that we fill out when we go to an event, there's a fair number of them up on the board resources, and so we will have like numerous things where we've checked off certain goals that we saw in action there. And my statement was the lack of a check mark doesn't mean that it means we have no evidence of that goal. Doesn't mean that that we're deficient in that. And the thing where the policy came is one of the goals is the bias and behavior policy, which I'm not going to see if I go to a high school play or a concert. And if I do see it, that means that there was an incident that is unusual. So I haven't looked over everyone's forms, but on mine, I don't think there's any point where I checked off, I saw evidence of the bias and behavior policy in action, in which case that doesn't mean that we aren't accomplishing that goal. It just means that that from the things that we've done, we don't have evidence of that, so we would want to look for other ways we can find evidence.
Thank you. You said that much better than I did. And Bill, you corrected me, so let me just get clarification here. We're evaluating the board goals.
The board goals, now one of your 3 board goals is to monitor the district goals. So you're gonna pull in the district goal work. And then
Right.
you as a board are gonna be able to say, let's take a look at this, what else do we need? Where are we right now? And then what adjustments do you wanna make for the coming year? And then from there, we can make a board work plan and say, okay. And we can also look at the work plan for this past year, what worked and what didn't work. So, I mean, that's a good part of that retreat, and we had talked about having a facilitator or not, we kind of landed on, let's try not without one, because we're doing this specific work, and that, you and myself and Charlie, we would sit down and do some planning. And the thing we also talked about on Monday night was that at the next meeting, the first meeting in April, we're gonna try to they're all up on the resource section, are all the board observations, but just to take some time in the next meeting, so everyone has some time to kind of look at that, and have time to kind of look at them and then reflect before we come to the retreat, because the retreat's after that meeting. And then the other thing is, Aaron, I should remember, did we send out the link to the board self-evaluation?
Yes.
I thought we did, yeah. So the self-evaluation's out, so we'd ask you to have that. And if you can get that done before the next meeting, because Charlie, Nilda, and I might use that to kind of frame how the facilitation, so we're not having to go through everything. Anyone can see all the results from it, we'll bring those, but I mean, just it's a way of like, where do we might need to hone in and change some of the direction a little bit. So.
Right. I think as many worksheets as we can put together for people to work off will help us too.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So, put it in your calendar, April 14th o'clock, and it's going to be at the
Thank you all very much.
Lodge, Hardek Lodge. There's, what's his name?
Something.
Greg Brown, yeah, Greg Brown's Lodge. Okay, new business. First item is education support professionals master agreement. So this is an action item. So Jack is going to tell us what's going on, but I'm going to make a motion just for discussion. I move to approve the educational support professionals master agreement as presented. Can I have a second, please?
I'll second Nakuma.
Can somebody second?
Second, Nakuma.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Jack, can you take us through a quick report on this agreement?
Certainly. Had a great committee, Joanna, Carly, and myself. And with Becky's help and, of course, Brianne's help, and the superintendent as an advisor throughout the meetings, we came to a great conclusion because we sensed that we were going to get an offer from the association of a gigantic pay raise, and they really didn't do that. They met us kind of where we were, and it was a very good process. Bottom line is, it was a 3-year agreement. The first year, 5% increase. The second and third year, 4% each year. With Brianne's help, we saw that fit in the budget that was prepared for that. So we had several small changes to language, which didn't really amount to any cost factors. They were just cleanup language issues. If you want, we can go all the way through those, but you don't really need to. I guarantee that they're not that drastic. And Bill made sure that we didn't fall off the cliff with any language issues. So that's the bottom line, a 5, a 4, and a 4, 3-year contract. We talked about what if the state changes, education, whatever. We just had to move forward because we can't anticipate what's going to happen. So we have a 3-year agreement, and we're happy with that. So, and I hope you folks are.
Jack, can I just add one thing?
Sure.
Just one thing I would add to that cost of 5%, 4%, 4% is there are no steps. So usually a step I would add another percent, 1.5. Am I right, Bree? Somewhere between 1.5 and 1.4. Yeah, percent each year. So there were no steps asked for.
Yeah. Good point. Thank you, Bill.
I did notice a change in the unpaid leave. That the new says unpaid leave will not be considered unless all paid leave has been exhausted.
That's right.
When was that change?
Those are some of the small technical
Okay.
things. I don't know if Joanna and Carly have, but that was, what
Yeah.
other pieces we.
Jack, thank you for that review. Any questions related to this contract, master agreement? I'm hearing none, so I think we're ready to vote. We'll have to take a roll vote. Amanda?
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Carly,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
Nicola,
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Nilda votes yes. Motion carries unanimously. I'd like to thank the negotiating team for their hard work and thank the Vermont NEA group for their hard work in coming to an agreement in such a timely and efficient way. Next item on the agenda, we're skipping, so we're up to item 9, new business, policy subcommittee update. We've asked Mary Ann to give this update, so I'm gonna turn it over to you, Mary Ann.
Okay, we are on the policy review committee, and there are two citizens and 3 board members representing, and we've met 3 times. One was just an introduction, the other one we picked, we're focusing currently on student policy reviews, and we divvied up 12 of them between the 5 of us. And last meeting, we went over each of the policies that were looked at, and we have some that just need a little rework, and then some we will be presenting to the school board at the next meeting, or as soon as it can. We really worked hard on these, compared them to the Vermont School Board Association policies, and just went through them pretty thoroughly. We have more focus on the next meeting. We have 5 or 6 policies that we're going to be reviewing. And so things are going well. We're going to have some brought forward to you next meeting.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Any questions for Mary Ann? Okay, I'm not hearing any, so we're gonna move on to other business warrants. I'm gonna make a motion to approve the warrants, acknowledging that passage of this motion will act as authorization and signature of any individual board members participating remotely. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, I think we're ready to vote. Amanda?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Joanna?
Yes.
Carly?
Yes.
Mary Ann?
Yes.
Nikuma?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Nilda votes yes. Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Bill, to turn over to you for your superintendent's report.
Thanks, Nelda. Appreciate that. Just a couple of things I wanted to make sure the board was aware of. Yesterday, as you know, with John leaving to assume the role of superintendent at Mount Mansfield, a unified union school district, yesterday we have a first round interview committee being led by Becky Grino, and they started their interviews yesterday and will be going through next Tuesday. There will be then moving forward candidates for a second round piece of that, and we're going to design the second round after we interview all the first round to make sure we can get the evidence that we need to have to make a choice. So,
How many applicants?
11.
Wow.
Did 11 applicants make it through the screening process?
We're interviewing 5.
You're interviewing 5. Thank you.
and there's high quality, I would say there.
Great.
So I'm actually really excited.
Excellent.
Really, really excited. We have, John's gonna be hard to replace, but especially the sarcasm, but you know, we'll work on that. You guys could upgrade. Yeah.
Is sarcasm on the rubric?
Yeah, sarcasm's on the rubric. Yes, it is. It is. It's in there. Tomorrow night, there's an event here at BFA, Protecting Your Brains. It's about nicotine and other substances that impact on mental health. I would encourage all of you to attend. And I will say, I just emailed you probably 5 minutes ago that I was supposed to do before the meeting. Then I was sitting here and go, wait a minute, I'm supposed to do this. Many of you asked about coming to the Restorative Practices community events. It's happening Thursday the 27th and April 3rd at City School. We are taking RSVPs, so if you'd like to go, I'd encourage you. In the email I sent you has the link to the Google form. I know, talking with Stacy Rulo, who's here for a few minutes, she and her husband Jeff and Alexis and a few others will be helping to lead that. I think there's 12 or 13 people signed up right now. So if you do, and the reason they're asking that is they want to know who's going to be there, and everyone that's there will be joining in, it'll be held in a very restorative way. So we'll be starting out with a group circle, and it's not, if you come, it's not to observe, you are participating. So.
And this is the one that you would be appropriate for board members to
Yeah,
go
it's
to.
great for you to come.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be great. They're gonna really explain how.
And you just emailed those dates to us?
I just emailed you those dates along with the link to the Google form.
Perfect.
Are they two different sessions, or is it one builds on the other? Like, should you attend both, or can you attend one or the other?
I need to read.
We're nodding yes.
Read, dying, yes, okay. It's 2 parts.
Great, 2 parts.
Thank you,
One part
Bree.
two. Excellent, thank you.
I gotta do better.
Was that yes?
Yes, two parts, one each night.
Thank you.
Sorry, I
Bill,
just can't
tomorrow
keep
night-
everything up here.
That's why you have staff.
That's why we have people around
That's
here.
why you
They
have
do
staff.
that.
And tomorrow night's with Amy Brewer, where is that?
Right at BFA in the PAC. I believe it's in the
PAC.
PAC, but I could be wrong, but I know it's in this building.
Okay, cool.
And I'm
Thank you.
sure there'll be signs at the front entrance.
Yeah, thank you.
I would be shocked if there weren't, because they do such a good job of signage for every community event around here. So, that's all I have. I just wanted to bring you those 3 things.
Okay. Any questions for Bill? Okay, moving on to board announcements.
Aaron, did you have a question?
Anyone?
I was just gonna say the event tomorrow is in the BFA library.
In the BFA library.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, Aaron. Any board announcements? One. All right, item B, plan for board observations and reflections. I think we discussed that earlier. Agenda for future meetings, reports from new staff. I think Bill was going to mention that, as he's going to bring some information related to the induction process in the next.
In May, I was thinking in May. In May, Neld is what we talked about. It won't be the next meeting, but in May, we're looking at doing we revise it every year, and usually by that time, we should be able to tell you what we've been doing, but also revise what our plans are for next year.
Right. And Bill explained to me that this is not onboarding, this is more details about everything related to the job. We don't need an executive session. Are there any other matters to come before the board? I'm hearing none, so I'm gonna adjourn the meeting at 7:13. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I feel like next meeting's gonna be like 4 hours.
I thought this one was gonna be a long one.
Yeah, we're.